Hello, everybody. It's Ben with UpDoc, and welcome to the 2022 Talent Acquisition and Retention Report. This year's report is a big one. This covers a lot of data that we've been covering since before the pandemic, into the pandemic, and now as we're kind of acclimating to this disruptive wave environment on how we can keep agile, keep our people, and train up the ones that we want to take on helms of leadership and organizational growth. This report is kind of special because we take the persona or the voice of the workforce line staff member, as well as multiple tiers of management, from the hiring manager all the way up to the executive, C-suite, and the practice owner. This report covers what makes people tick, what are deal makers, what are deal breakers, what are some must-haves before I, as a prospective candidate, even apply to a job. Or maybe as a hiring manager, what I'm really looking for, what will really seal the deal to get that offer across the table. We also are going to look at burnout reasons and rates, as well as intention to stay, and reasons why people name that they would leave or stay with a company, and perhaps some levers that we can use both on the workforce end as well as the management end to make for a better workplace environment. We also dive into reasons of why people say they would leave or stay. And again, this crosses the entire workforce, all tiers of management from the line staff to the C-suite. And people are saying very openly what would make them stay and leave. And we want to dive into some of those reasons to unveil maybe some organizational management levers to better engage our workforce. There's also two interesting sections of this report that is relatively new. The open thoughts section, which we kind of merge all the prevalent thoughts beyond the sentiment and narrative analysis, mostly voices of concern as well as elation that people maybe wouldn't be so willing to share if they were, filmed for name and face. And most of it has to do with constructive criticism, but also some celebration. And it's understandable. If there's very extreme environments in the airwaves, it's harder for people to share well-balanced thoughts. Or it could be a little bit rubbing it in people's noses if I'm having a great time at my place of employment and everybody else is struggling. But either way, we want to recognize these voices and let them be heard because they are part of a whole. The other interesting aspect of this report is happiness. We wanted to take a look at which settings had the happiest people based on their willingness or intention to stay. And we did split that between the workforce or talent pool and the management staff. And the results are rather interesting. But let's dive right in to deal makers and breakers, as well as must-haves at the top level, and then we'll kind of work our way down into why people are burning out and what will make them leave or stay. From the talent pool, the number one must-have before they even consider application or accepting an offer is flexibility. There's a large demand, ever growing, for the talent pool to be able to control their own schedule, and that kind of leads into this idea of autonomy that's a theme in this report. The second thing is reasonable productivity standards, which actually connects through prior data gatherings that we know of in the Corporate Quality Index, that productivity standards, work-life balance, corporate culture, and good management, they're all kind of one and the same thing. And you're going to see this as a theme, not just from the talent pool perspective, but in various tiers of management. From the voice of the hiring manager, a new metric kind of came through as their number one requirement as a must-have for an applicant or a candidate or before they offer anything to anybody, and that's penchant to learn. The idea of attitude to learning to personality traits seems to be the true present focus of hiring managers. And it's not too different at the executive or ownership level, where those hiring managers are looking for cultural fit to the organization. This mirrors very well to some of the data that we've released at the Practice Management Report for 2022 moving forward, where practice managers are really looking to work on their people and their organization as a whole, to elevate the corporate culture, to take care of their people, and to make sure that everybody's aligned in purpose and belonging. Coming in at number one as a deal maker for the talent pool is a good corporate culture. And this mirrors the hiring manager who is looking for team attitude. And along with that, the executive level, ownership level manager is looking for somebody who is a self-starter, somebody who's motivated, a go-getter, willing to take initiative in forward-moving steps. Coming at number one deal breaker for the workforce talent pool at over 60% of the respondents, unreasonable productivity standards. This is matched with sentiments that's well worth a read in the report, where the respondents feel that this line item seems to be highly tied with concerns. concerns about billing practices, concerns about appointment practices, as well as a tie directly to a negative workplace environment, a bad corporate culture, bad managers, etc. There's a lot to unpack that would be better done just in the report, but it is there, just so you know. Number one deal breaker on the hiring manager side is nearly the same for, call it the hiring manager versus the executive manager. And they're both looking at stubbornness and inflexibility, negative personality attribute traits that will fail out a potential candidate. And it's very interesting, and it makes plenty of sense that the workforce is looking for the work environment, not necessarily the pay, but the environment and the people that they're around that comprises the culture. And the hiring managers at all tiers are looking for personality traits because they want to make sure that what they bring in is a positive influence that everyone can grow along with. In this report, we also dive into where people are looking for and posting jobs. And it's surprising to see that the first couple points of contact is where actually everybody seems to be meeting together. But there seems to be a massive disconnect. We talk about how and why this is occurring and maybe some solutions that both the candidate talent pool can take as well as the hiring manager to better reconnect after that initial contact and hopefully be able to match the right candidate with the right cultural fit. We also dive into the intention to stay metric, and as mentioned in the practice management report released this year, we have an improvement in our industry. This is a wonderful thing to be able to share. We also dive into what causes or perhaps what is correlated with a higher intention to stay. And in no certain terms, it seems to be autonomy. There are details that we outline in the report, again, very much worth the read, and we break it down by setting, by level of management, as well as by the workforce itself and the demographic split of their settings and specialties. Let's talk about the winner of the Happiest Setting Award, dun dun dun, at 8.2 out of 10, home health. That's right, home health clinicians mark themselves as the most likely willing to stay for the next 12 months of employment. And unfortunately at the bottom seems to be outpatient with attaché, meaning these clinicians feel that they signed up for outpatient, maybe outpatient orthopedics or outpatient neuro or something, but they also had other duties lopped on top, which is something they didn't necessarily sign on for. It could be digital health, it could be telehealth proper, it could be a outpatient at home, whatever the case. There is that sense, kind of mirroring the opposite of self-perceived autonomy is I've been voluntold to do all these extra things that I didn't necessarily sign up for. And because of parts of those reasons, I'm more likely to leave. We do dive into the management side of that discussion as well. Also, why people would leave or stay. For the talent pool, people would stay because they felt that they were properly recognized and embroidered. And it's not necessarily just the money. Some of the narrative analysis just want public recognition that, hey, I'm doing a good job. On the flip side, though, talent pool members do say they would pretty much leave for the sole reason of bad corporate culture. On the management side, it's very well reflected as well. Good corporate culture, I'm going to stay as a manager. Bad corporate culture, I'm going to leave. However, be cautious. For those of you that are in, say, middle or senior management, it does seem that managers are being headhunted and sniped out from one organization to the other because the number 2 reason a manager would leave is because they got a better offer elsewhere. We'll close out this video talking about burnout, rhymes and reasons, and we list the top 5 narrative reasons specifically in the report, and they do include ideas such as I'm underpaid, or I'm doing a lot of stuff off the clock, or I feel underappreciated. Whatever the case, we highly recommend you take a look at this regardless of what sector of the workforce you hail from, just so you see it that A, you're not alone, and B, there are things that we can do to help prevent burnout at a very tangible level. There's a whole distribution graph of how much burnout managers and talent pool workforce members are experiencing, and an entire insight section of what you can do, the common struggles, as well as strategies for recruitment and retention that organizations should pay attention to. Again, we highly encourage you to sign up and download the report, give it a read. It's a big one, and we really look forward to your feedback to help us further calibrate this survey series and report series to be able to collect and share more meaningful data for change levers that you can use in your practice and your career development. Our next report to be released will be the ever-popular salary report, the Job Market Pulse. I'm Ben Fung with UpDoc. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you at the next one.